Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome to What We Learned Live following the Buckeyes 2025 spring game. I am Dave Biddle here at beautiful Ohio Stadium, the best college football stadium on planet Earth. Great to have you guys with me. We're going to get into all the things that we gleaned from today's game. I'll be joined earlier in the show by the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic, to talk about what else. Recruiting, huge recruiting day for the Buckeyes. We're going to get into that with Bill. I'll ask Bill his thoughts on what he saw from the spring game itself, but because he doesn't just do recruiting, although he's the best at it, and that's what he mostly does, but he loves his Buckeyes too and watches every game. So curious what he thinks about what he saw today from Julian Sain and the rest of the guys. But we'll get to Bill here in about 15 minutes. After that, we're going to hear from my man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider, a.k.a. Heater. And then after post-game interviews, we'll hear from Steve Helwagen, hear from Ohio Stadium, and Patrick Murphy from location unknown. But we'll hear from both Steve and Pat after post-game interviews. All right, so let's get to some things that we learned. We'll start right at the top. And I do not think Lincoln is going to transfer. I really don't. He's not going to transfer. He knows, even if he believes that he is behind Julian leaving spring, and it looks like he is, although we've got to be careful not to put too much stock in a spring game. If they were even coming in, which do we really think they were dead even? Probably not. Probably one guy was a little ahead of the other. Probably Julian was a little ahead of Lincoln, hence him starting the game today, getting the first two series. Really, the first series was with the twos. Then the second series, the ones came in there, including the first team offensive line, Jeremiah Smith and the rest. But good day for Julian. Again, we can't put too much stock in one spring practice, which is what this was. But he looked good. And I, as I've been saying, I think Lincoln could get the job done if need be. But I'll be very surprised if Julian's not the starting quarterback. So good day for Julian for sure. He even had some balls, especially a couple late there. I thought he threw really well that his guys dropped. Talking about like late here in the fourth quarter. Also had a couple of throws I thought he put on the money. Like one to Jelani Thurman was a really good throw in the end zone. But Jalen McClain broke it up, did a great job. Let's get into some of the guys that I thought stood out. Obviously, we're going to start right at the top. We already talked about Julian. We'll get into much more about Julian. So some of the guys that just stood out today, and not just guys that stood out who I don't think are going to play. These are guys who stood out today who have also had good springs up until now, and they're in the plans this year. Maybe as backups, but they're in the plans. So let's go to Mylan Graham. Great day for him. I think he's the number 4 receiver. Nothing against Quincy Porter or Bryson Rogers. Those guys provide depth. But entering his second year, he was a 5-star. I know you guys don't forget about that, but a lot of people forget because there was another 5-star receiver in that class too, I think, right? J.J. Smith or something like that. So Mylan Graham looks really good. Big day today. He's had a good spring overall. Coaches have been gushing about him. If you're wondering who's that top guy, if one of those 3 starters gets hurt, talking about J.J., hopefully J.J. doesn't get hurt. Carnell, hopefully Carnell doesn't get hurt. And Brandon Ennis, hopefully Brandon doesn't get hurt. But if any of those guys do go down, Mylan Graham, I think, will be the next guy in. He looks good. Now in his second year, he looks really good. Quick. He made a couple really nice plays today. He had one where he just undressed Malik Hartford. Wasn't a good day for Malik. Was not a good day for Malik. You have to think that Jalen McClain's probably, leader in the clubhouse to start opposite Caleb Downs. And again, can't put too much stock in one spring game. But, I'm talking about overall what I've heard and seen this spring, not just today. And I think if I had to guess, I think Jalen McClain will be the starter opposite Caleb Downs. But I think Hartford's going to play a lot, and that battle is far from over. But I thought Mylan Graham looked really good. All right, Peyton Pierce, we can see why, even though he probably couldn't, hit as much as he would have liked to today. And I'm understating that just a tad. You can see why James Laurinaitis gushes about him. And he just has that look of a middle linebacker that's just going to, be a nightmare for offenses all year. And he's their number 3 linebacker because Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese they look great. So I love those top 3 linebackers. I'm still not sure who the number 4 guy is, but I keep saying I won't be surprised if it's Riley Pettijohn. He looked good today. He looked good. He had a sideline-to-sideline tackle. I was like, yep, that's what you want right there, number 20. I still think I see number 20. I still think it's Arvell Reese, But then I see number 8, and I know that's not Lathan Ransom. That guy's too tall. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. Reese has moved from 20 to 8. I'm sure you guys know this. And Pettijohn's 20. But still, even at practices this spring, I'll see 20 making a play. I'm like, yeah, look at Arvell out there. No, that was actually a kid that should still be in high school, Riley Pettijohn. He's another guy I think has really helped himself this spring. Fahim Delane. He's a guy I've been talking about all spring. We're not just talking about that awesome interception he had. And it was. He read it. He jumped it, almost took it the distance. Not a good day for Tavian St. Clair, although he played better late. True freshman quarterback should still be in high school. Let's be patient with him. I still think he's going to be a good one. I like his physical trait. I love his physical traits, and I love how mature he is. Very important for a quarterback to carry himself like a leader, and Tavian does that. So, but it's easy to see why he's the number 3 quarterback, right? So, not a big surprise there. Even a guy like Justin Fields struggled his first spring game. He was entering his second year, first year at Ohio State. And that was, 6 years ago? So we're leaving that 2019 spring game. Like, are we sure this Justin Fields guy is all that? Yeah, he is. Turns out he was. Fahim Delane looks good. I think he's going to round out the 2 deep at safety. So whoever loses the battle between McLean and Hartford, I think it'll be Hartford, will be the top backup safety. And who's going to be that other guy on the 2 deep at safety? I think true freshman Fahim Delane. And I'm just impressed with this freshman class overall. I mean, we know Devin Sanchez is going to play a lot. Him and Aaron Scott being backup corners is just an absurd amount of riches. When you have IGB and Jermaine Matthews, who looks great as the outside corners. I know Jermaine can play the slot too, but nickel. But Lorenzo Styles Jr. looks good in the slot. So I think they're going to keep Jermaine outside, but Devin Sanchez is going to play a lot. Aaron Scott's going to play a lot. I know Aaron's entering his second year, but he had 2 5-star corners as backups. Devin Sanchez, number 1 corner recruit in the country. I believe Aaron Scott was ranked as the number 1 corner recruit in the country. If not, he was damn close. Definitely a 5-star. Those guys are going to play a lot. Let's go over some of the, we talked about Riley Pettijohn. Another guy I think is going to play on defense is backup, but will play for sure. Zion Grady. He's had a good spring. Looked good today. And then on offense, they're not going to need a lot of true freshmen to play, but a guy that definitely stood out to me, I'm sure all of you, Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson's looking good out there, rocking the 25. I still think he should wear 34. I'm kind of joking when I say that, but he looks absolutely legit. I thought Sam Williams-Dixon played well, so I jotted some of the guys down. I was jotting down. Yeah, I thought C.J. Donaldson looked good early, right? He slimmed down a lot, which at first I was like, I kind of like having a big 238-pound back. He's down to like 225, maybe even lower than that. But I tell you what, he still has the power, and he looks quick. So C.J. Donaldson looks good. James Peoples is going to have a real good year as the starter. I feel like we haven't been talking about that enough. He obviously was barely out there today. There's no reason for him to be out there too much. But I thought Sam Williams-Dixon looked good. He had some tough runs, and I definitely think Bo Jackson looks good. I've been saying Bo's going to be the number 3 back, but Sam Williams-Dixon looks good. They got 2 guys. They got a pair and 2 spares. You got James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson, but then you got Bo Jackson and Sam Williams-Dixon. And Isaiah. Is it Isaiah? I get them both mixed up. Yeah, because Bryce West is the corner. Yeah, Isaiah West, the running back, missed spring with an injury. He came in. He'll be ready for camp. And then they bring in Turbo Rogers as well. So it's not just going to be Sam Williams-Dixon and Bo Jackson fighting for that 3rd spot. There'll be some other guys in the mix, but those 2 guys are obviously, probably the favorites right now, considering they're able to go through spring. Sam now entering his 2nd year. Bo looks really good, man. He looked great today, I thought. So it's pretty crazy. You lose the best tailback tandem I've seen at Ohio State in Quinshawn and Travion. I didn't see Archie and Pete. That's the gold standard of tailback tandems at Ohio State. And there's been a lot of good ones. I mean, Antonio Pittman, speaking of a number 25, and Beanie Wells was pretty good. But that was Beanie as a true freshman, Antonio as a junior. Not quite the same as Travion as a senior and Quinshawn as a junior. So you lose these guys, it's going to be a big hit, right? I'm not saying this group's going to be better than them. They won't be. But, you lose those 2, but you replace them with James Peoples, you bring in Donaldson from West Virginia, you bring in a really good recruiting class led by Bo Jackson, and you get Sam Williams-Dixon back. Pretty good stable of running backs. All right, let's move on. Another guy that definitely stood out, Max Clare, junior, transfer, came in from Purdue. He looks good. He had a ton of catches today. I'm still waiting for Jerry to send out the final stats. I was like, Claire had 3 catches before I even knew what was going on. So Max Clare stood out today. He's another guy. I basically have a section. I'm looking at my notes. Dudes. Who are the dudes? And it couldn't just be today. It had to be a guy that also was having a good spring overall and followed it up by being a dude in the spring game. So who's another dude? Jelani Thurman looks like a dude. And he was one of those guys that came in with all the talent in the world, but was he going to work? Was he going to buy into being a blocker? Yeah. I mean, so look at the end of the year last year in the playoff run. He was out there just throwing that big body around. He looks great. I can't believe this tight end room. I mean, lose the leader of the room, the starter, who had a heck of a good year in G. Scott Jr. And then look at this. This is as deep of a tight end room as I can remember. because you bring in Max Clare. You have Will Kazmarek back for his 5th and final year, second year at Ohio State, who, the tight ends coach Keenan Bailey calls the best blocking tight end in the country. Now, he's hurt. For those that are wondering what's going on with Kazmarek, he's in a boot. His right foot's in a boot, and he's on one of those scooters. So if it was just a boot, I might think it was a sprain, but boot plus scooter, probably a broken bone. We'll see if they say anything at the press conference about that. But I'm guessing Kazmarek's going to be fine for the season. That's a good thing we're talking here on April 12th and not August 12th. I think Kazmarek's going to be fine. But you got Clare, Kazmarek. Bennett Christian played a decent amount on the national championship team. He's going to be in the mix again. And then Jelani Thurman, who might be the most talented tight end that they've ever recruited. I mean, Ruckert was also ranked very high. I mean, they just getting that kind of high 4-star, 5-star tight end is not typically what happens here. But Jelani Thurman, man, he looks really good. And get Max Clare in the transfer portal, that's something that would not have happened a few years ago because Ohio State had the reputation of not throwing to the tight end. And I think Cade Stover really helped change that. Ruckert to a degree, but he never even had 30 receptions in a season. Cade Stover having 2 straight years with over 30 receptions helped squash that narrative that Ohio State never throws to the tight ends. And they can show all these guys that they put in the NFL as well. All right. I'll get to some more dudes in a moment, but I gave you most of them. Here's a dude for you. Begins with another D, actually. He's a dude, but he's also the dean. Okay? He's the dean of Ohio State football recruiting. You guys know him. You love him. I know him and love him. Bill Kurelic, good to see you.
Hello, Dave. I was enjoying listening to you there while I was backstage, so to speak.
I didn't mean to keep you waiting there, sir. Sorry about that.
Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, I was enjoying listening to you.
I know you like seeing my beautiful home studio in my basement, but I like this background better. What do you think?
That's pretty nice. Very, very nice.
Like
Especially, well, the sky is partly blue now. Earlier in the day, it was all blue. I was going to say, especially with the all blue sky.
It's probably good. So that way, like the reflection's not completely. Well, people not seeing my face could actually be a good thing for the people. So maybe it wouldn't be bad if I was a little blurred. But all right, let's start with, before we get to recruiting, I want to hear your thoughts on the game quickly, because you're the best in the business at recruiting, but you're also a lifelong Buckeye fan. You know your stuff. You watch every game. You're a huge Buckeye football fan. What do you think of the spring game? What were your main takeaways?
A lot of times I come away from the spring game as, it's just a spring game and that type of thing. And interesting, I guess. But I actually enjoyed today's a little bit more. And I think part of the reason was Ohio State lost so many guys from last season. So they were playing a lot of guys that are relatively new as far as, watching Ohio State when the game's on the line. And, a lot of guys that have something to earn and prove and all. So I thought that was enjoyable. Obviously it's not a real game. They're not tackling to the ground and all that. So it's hard to make judgments, but I came away impressed with a number of things, including actually I see in the comments, a lot of comments about the quarterback situation and Julian Sayin, but I came away, relatively impressed with both Sayin and Keenholz. And I thought after that pick six, or well, it wasn't quite a pick six, but it was a pick from Tavian St. Clair, I thought he did okay too. So I'm encouraged.
Yeah, Keenholz started slow, and then, and of course, Julian leads them on 3 straight touchdown drives, so that didn't look good for Lincoln. But I thought Lincoln then rebounded and actually played solid. I'm not down on Lincoln, and I don't think he's going to transfer. He knows he's one play away from being a starter.
I saw the stats, Dave. I think this is right. I think Lincoln was 13 out of 17. That's not bad.
Pretty good. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see the stats. I'm kind of up here like in no man's land here, waiting for the stats. But yeah, man, let's get into recruiting. Obviously, a massive, massive, massive day in recruiting. Let's start with offensive tackle Felix Ojo. What do we need to know, my friend?
Well, he is a priority guy. I mean, Ohio State is recruiting him as a left tackle, and I think if you went to the dictionary, you might see his name right by that left tackle. He's that good. A lot of people talk about Jackson Cantwell. I think is the number 1 tackle in the country, but Felix Ojo, in my opinion, is right there with him. And the good news is he's right there with Ohio State. He likes the Buckeyes a lot. I think it's going to ultimately come down to Ohio State or Texas for Felix. He has official visits to those 2 schools, Ole Miss, Michigan, and Oklahoma, already set. But interestingly, he visited Ohio State on Thursday and Friday. Then after he left Ohio State yesterday afternoon, he headed south to the sunny state of Florida. What was he doing down there today? Watching the Florida spring game. So, you may after this weekend have another official visit for Felix. We'll see. But he told me after he left Ohio State that he had a great time. He was really impressed with Tyler Bowen, the Buckeyes offensive line coach. And, I just think everything is there. Not going to be easy getting him out of Texas because he is from Mansfield, Texas, but Ohio State has a shot.
They've recruited Texas very well over the last several years. Very well. They continue. Another Texas kid out there, Devin Sanchez, looking good today as a freshman. All right, running backs, Derek Cooper. And help me with this next one. Is it Favor Aki? Do I have that right?
Close.
Okay.
Favor Aki. Just like the word favor Aki. Running back from just north of where I live, probably 10 miles maybe.
Okay.
Delaware Hayes High School. If he becomes a Buckeye, he would be the first Ohio State signee, I believe, from Delaware Hayes in, decades, a long time. And that is if he becomes a Buckeye. But he's a guy that Ohio State offered, I think it was maybe back in January. He's actually played his first year of high school at Westerville Central, but has been at Delaware Hayes, and he's a good one. I think he's got it down to 3 schools. He's got Ohio State, he's got USC and Miami, and I think it'd be hard-pressed right now to say that Ohio State would be the favorite over Miami and USC at this point.
All right, and linebacker Tyler Atkinson. What do we need to know about Mr. Atkinson?
Well, he's one of the top defensive edge linebackers in the country, without a doubt. A 5-star guy. And, Mark Porter and I talk about him on our Tuesday, Thursday podcasts about how we saw Tyler Atkinson when he was going into his freshman year in high school. So he just got done with this 8th grade year, middle school 8th grade year, and he shows up at the Ohio State camp, and he wowed everyone. I think, if I remember right, he got offered a scholarship by the Buckeyes that day, and he was just unbelievable. And here we are 3 years later, and he's still unbelievable. Hadn't not announced his official visits yet, but I think I'm relatively confident, let's say that Ohio State will be on his official visit schedule. And I think right now, if I had to pick the top 2 for him, I would probably go with Georgia and Ohio State as the top 2 for Tyler Atkinson. And he has made multiple trips to Ohio State. Always a good sign when you're coming from distance like he is from Georgia.
Quick question from Rusty on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard, but guys are renegotiating down at Tennessee. I don't know if you've heard about anything about this. I'm being facetious. He's asking, does Bill think David Sanders could leave Tennessee now? Would OSU try to get back in on him?
Well, he would have to get in the portal first, obviously. And speaking of that, we know that happens with Nico, the quarterback, in the portal. And when I first saw that yesterday, that he was negotiating a new deal, my goodness. Used to be that the NFL and those guys negotiated new deals. Now we're negotiating them in high school. I think I'm getting too old for this sometimes. But sure enough, he was trying to negotiate a new deal, and he got in the portal. As far as Sanders, you kind of showed right there, that would take a ton of money, an absolute ton. And I have heard no talk whatsoever of that happening.
The Nico stuff is so weird to me because I do see both sides of it to a certain degree. So he's making $2.2 million a year. And to me, I don't think he's even worth that. I think that The Athletic did a piece. They quoted some general managers and some guys who run collectives around the country, and they said he's probably worth more than 1.5 or 2 million. So already he's making 2.2 million. It's like, really? You think you're worth more than that? But we live in a capitalist society, so do what you need to do. Then again, he saw Carson Beck go to Miami to make $4 million. I don't even think Nico's that good. I'd probably rather have him than Carson Beck, though. He's probably thinking, well, the price has gone up. It's just wild, man. I've used this example. I don't like it at all. I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was like there was a backup quarterback who was making like $80,000, and then he ended up winning the job and playing well, and he wanted to renegotiate. That would make sense. When you're making $2.2 million a year and you're what, an above average player? Is that fair to say Nico's above average?
Yeah, I agree with you. He looked decently good against Ohio State for at least part of the game, but $4 million, being that highly paid, I just don't. I just don't see that. And somebody I see on the thread there, Nico will never be a Buckeye, and then somebody else says he's going to be a Buckeye. I'll go with he's not going to be a Buckeye.
Not going to be a Buckeye. His last game in this stadium will be Neyland North when Ohio State was cracking his helmet, literally cracking his helmet. All right, let's get you out of here on this. So I know you've reported 4 new offers went out to 2027 kids.
Yeah. Ohio State started yesterday with an offer to an offensive lineman from Pennsylvania, Terrence Smith, who left Ohio State. He was on a one-day visit yesterday, left Ohio State very, very impressed, and that was a big offer for him. Then today, they offered 3 more guys. Judah Lancaster, who's from Arizona, but he's at Bradenton IMG. Keenan Bailey, tight end coach, offered Judah a scholarship. And Judah, I've already talked to him today. He was thrilled, very excited about getting an Ohio State offer. Gavin Williams, and not the Gavin Williams that pitches for the Cleveland Indians, Guardians, whatever. Not that Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams, the safety from California, got an offer today from Ohio State. And then another Californian, and this is a tester as far as names go. He's a safety from California, Isa Willie Ava. Got an offer from Ohio State today. So 4 new offers in the last 24 hours. And, Ohio State's working really hard to finish off that 2026 class, but they're also working pretty hard on that 2027 class as well.
These recruits get to see these guys get 3 rings today, not just 1,
yeah,
not 2, 3 rings. I didn't know you got a ring for just making the college football playoff. That's obviously new. I didn't know you got a ring for that.
Did not know that either.
Man, that national championship ring looks, to the surprise of no one, looks awesome. It even pops open and has like the scores of the games and such. Just fantastic. All right, I really appreciate your time. He is the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Thank you very much, my friend.
All right, thanks, Dave. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and all those out there as well.
Absolutely. Same to you, sir. Thank you, Bill. All right, he is the dean, and just a great guy as well. So the offense won 50-31. A lot of times I think the scoring in spring games, when you can just get a finger on the quarterback, is kind of set up to help the defense, but offensive line held up well today. I also thought there were some times when there was clearly holding that wasn't called. Logan George looks good to me. CJ Hicks is definitely quick off the edge. There's no doubt about that. So, they're starting to build some depth there. Logan George, to me, is clearly going to be the top backup defensive end. And that's nothing against CJ. I think they're going to use CJ more in like a specialty role. Not that you can give it away that he's going to rush the passer every time he's on the field, but if it's 3rd and 14, he's out there, okay. You don't really need to hide the fact that he's probably going to be rushing the passer. But it's not like he couldn't drop in coverage if they wanted him to. So I think Logan George is a 3-down defensive end who's going to play a lot. He looked good. And Larry Johnson was saying earlier this spring that Logan George has been a pleasant surprise. Excuse me. Getting all choked up when I talk about Idaho State transfers. But Logan George looks good. And again, guys, I don't think Lincoln Keenholz is transferring. I just don't think he's going to. I don't think that's the type of guy he is. And he knows he's got 3 years of eligibility left. And even if he does lose the job to Julian, which it looks like I think most of us believe that Julian's going to be the guy, he's 1 play away from being the starter. And then if it doesn't, it's kind of the Devin Brown situation. I think he'll stick around at least for his 3rd year. If then it doesn't go according to plan, I still think he'll stick around for the whole season and then maybe look to enter the transfer portal next year. But I think there's no doubt Lincoln Keenholz is going to stay here, even if they tell him, which I don't think they will. Even if they say Julian's ahead. I mean, Ryan Day said a couple days ago they're neck and neck. Is he going to base his opinion on the spring game? And if he does feel that way, would he tell Lincoln, hey, man, Julian's our guy? Like, no, he's not going to do that. All right. So this true freshman class came in ready to go. They came in ready to go. You know who else came in ready to go? Always ready to play. Always has his game face on. My man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider. How you doing, my man?
Dave Biddle, I am doing absolutely fantastic. I feel like a national champion today. That's what I feel like.
I feel like a national champion. You're telling me you're still basking?
I'm still basking. Totally basked. Yes. Basking? Absolutely.
You're at Neyland North.
Hey, I'll also tell you, I'm at Neyland North. I'm also a gambling man. I lived in Vegas for 6 years, and I am doing this downstairs with the door open and the dogs are running about. So if you hear barking, that's my dogs, and I lost my bet.
Whether it's what we learned live or the Bucknuts Morning Five, we encourage dogs to disrupt the show.
Absolutely.
Back to our late great friend Dwayne Long. I couldn't do a podcast without him. Without his dogs barking, I loved it.
Yeah.
Dan's dog Brad will bark. I have a couple dogs. Scooby, we should have named him Scrappy, not Scooby. He's a little tough little guy. You'll hear him bark sometimes when I'm doing a show. So if we hear your dogs bark, all good. Pat's dogs, Steve's dogs, hear it all the time.
Well, my tribute to the late great Dwayne Long is right there below my name. The Oracle Monkey owner. He's the guy that named that my little icon way back when I had for some reason I got the crazy prediction after the loss to Illinois in 2007, figured out a way for us with a million dominoes that had to fall to get to the national championship game. And it miraculously worked, although the end result was not the same that we wanted. And from then on, he had called that little ape in my picture the Oracle Monkey. And so there it is, my tribute to the late, great Dwayne Long.
We give out nicknames here at Bucknuts.
Yeah.
We do. That's what
Amen.
we do. Right, my man in Amsterdam, right, the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, right, Grand Poobah. We give many, many nicknames out.
D. Biddy.
That's right. So, yeah, man. So, Bo Jackson's looking really good. Like, so many guys stood out. Fahim Delane, this freshman class. I mean, we all Devin Sanchez. We could go on and on. Riley Pettijohn. These guys came in ready, and I don't think any of them are going to start, but they're going to add valuable depth. I mean, you lose a ton of guys like they did. Yeah. Like, these guys came in ready to go, and I think it helped everybody in spring because these guys came in. They're like, all right, we're ready to go. And I think that helped the veterans, helped them get pumped up. Not like we're just going to rest on our laurels winning the national championship. You and I are allowed to bask. Everybody in the chat's allowed to bask.
Right. Absolutely.
Everybody listening to the show's allowed to bask. The players, they can bask a little bit, but they got to focus on 2025.
They got work to do.
But, man, so many – these freshmen, man, I just am very impressed with this true freshman class and the way they've come in here physically ready and mentally ready.
Yeah, I think during that broadcast on Big Ten today, I think Ryan Day had a great statement when he was asked about all the talent that the team lost. He says, no, you got it all wrong. All we did was lose experience. We are still a ridiculously talented team, and indeed they are, if today is any indication. I thought Bo Jackson, especially coming off that injury that he had, I thought he looked really good. There were a couple other people out there. In the running back room, I thought Donaldson looked really good in the first half. He had a couple of nice pop runs there. It was great to see Max Clare come in. I'd transfer, obviously. He's going to be of tremendous value. What's our standard over-under for catches by a tight end, like 25?
Yeah, for a while it was like, are they ever going to get 30 receptions from a tight end? Ben Hartsock was the last back in 2003, and then Kate Stover did it back-to-back years. And I think – I was saying this earlier, Heater. This was 5 years ago. They don't get Max Clare in the portal. Yeah. I don't even know if the portal was like – you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they had the reputation here, rightfully so, but they don't throw the tight end. Even Jeremy Ruckert never had 30 receptions in a season. Kate Stover going back-to-back with over 30 receptions. The year G. Scott Jr. had 27 receptions, but still played a huge role. I don't think Max Clare's coming here unless he saw that. Plus, they've been putting these guys in the NFL, like Kate Stover, third-round pick. Ruckert was a third-round pick. Luke Farrell was a fifth-round pick. We could go on and on and on. They put guys in the NFL at the tight end position. So I think that really helped them get Max Clare. And, man, this tight end room, man, with Max Clare and Jelani Thurman. Kazmarik's hurt. He's in a boot. Kazmarek looks like he broke something in his right foot, if I had to guess, because he's in a boot and on the scooter. But he's a ferocious blocker. He'll be okay, I imagine, for the start of the season. And Bennett Christian as well. So they've got 4 dudes at tight end, man. That's despite losing G. Scott Jr.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think this – with a guy like Clare coming in, if Hartline does have some feature to him, and you saw how pretty that seam route looked today, this could be the year the last major award falls for Ohio State. Still have never won a Mackey, so that may change this year. Who knows, right? I just look at that tight end room, and I see, like you said, I see 4 dudes and one really, really, really dude of a dude.
I'm going to make a bold prediction. I don't even know if it's that bold at this point. I don't know if it's bold.
Okay.
Austin Saraved will definitely be the starting right tackle.
That feels good.
Does it feel bold, or does that feel like, that's not even bold?
Nah, that feels good.
I said it before spring it'd be bold. I'm saying it now. It's like,
yeah, I'd say you're on a branch. You're not out on a limb. That's for sure.
okay,
You know?
that's fair. Okay, it's like it's not quite bold,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm convinced, and I think Philip Daniels looks good. I'm thrilled they have him, but like it's clear that Sareveld is going to be the starting right tackle, in my opinion. He's had
he
phenomenal.
looks the part. I thought this offensive line. I was thinking back during this game, glorified scrimmage. I was thinking back to where we were a year ago at this time and all the worries we had about offensive line. And somehow, magically, that offensive line, with all of the injuries, still wound up going 9 deep and being a ring-winning offensive line.
3 rings, as it turns out, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Side note, the flip open and seeing the confetti on the inside, I will raise a glass and say, well done. Absolutely well done. That was insanely
I just need one
creative. And so did they actually grab the confetti from that field?
Yeah, I grabbed some myself. So I'm sure they had one of their support staff members were grabbing a bunch. So a lot of us were just grabbing as much as we could. And I'm sure they had a couple of support staff members just stuffed a bag full of it so they could then that's great. That's such a cool idea, just to put a little confetti from the game.
Yeah, that was absolutely genius. I thought it was gaudy as they should be. Every ring like that should be gaudy. And if ever you go to Canton and they have a display of all of the Super Bowl rings, and they start out with this little tiny, band with nothing on it, but like a diamond. And now, of course, you might as well have brass knuckles that just, show everything.
By the way, did this really happen? I am looking forward to seeing the replay, but I didn't hear the TV. Excuse me. Now I'm getting choked up talking about Julian Sand's height. I guess they said Julian Sand was 5'11". First of all, he's listed at 6'1". If anything, trust me, if anything, he's closer to 6'2".
Yeah.
Than he is 6 foot. And Ohio State's really good about being accurate with their height and weight. Just look at the combine. The height, and guys lose a little weight or gain weight for the combine, but the height and weight is usually pretty accurate. So he's at least 6'1 and a half, in my opinion.
I think that was Jake Butt that said it, that he's listed at 6'1", but after watching him in practice for a couple days, it feels like 5'11 or 6 foot. And and it was magical. As soon as he said it, the very next play, pass deflected. And I was like, doggone it, Doug Flutie, the ghost of Doug Flutie.
Actually, despite that one thing, I kind of like Jake Butt.
Yeah. He actually does. Jake Butt does a good job. He's a very good commentator.
He's a good guy. I got a chance to meet him in Atlanta, and I told him until now, I said, I got a funny story for you. I said, I've never heard this before. Every Buckeye fan I talked to, which this was true at the time, says nothing but good things about you, Jake. And I've never heard a Buckeye fan talk so well about a Wolverine, and he liked that. He's a heck of a nice guy, and I think he does a good job. But if I see him, I'm going to have to tell him, Julian Sand is not 5'11". Come on. I know you're very tall, Jake, but come on. Guy's not 5'11".
I'm 6'1", but I've not stood next to Sand. And so if Sand, you've stood next to me. If Sand's my height, then he's 6'1".
Oh yeah, he definitely is. He's probably a tick taller than you.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit taller than him. I like to say I'm 6'3". I'm probably more like 6'2 and a half. And we were almost. I was just a little bit taller than. We were looking eye to eye to each other in Atlanta during an interview. Both had our shoes on, but I'm thinking he's at least. I think he's 6'2". He says he's 6'2". Anyway, let's move on. People are going to be down on Tavian St. Clair, but man, he should be getting ready for his high school prom, and I think this kid's going to be a good one here. We got to be patient.
I'm not down on him at all. I'm not. So he had first half. Let's say first half jitters, right? 1 for 7 and the interception. His second half was a completely different quarterback. I don't know if it was his younger brother that was playing the first half and he came in, he was wearing a mask. I have no idea. But that was a completely different St. Clair in the second half. He had confidence, he had zing on the ball, he had good placement, all of that stuff. And he had a couple of balls where he squeezed it in tight windows. And if you go back and look at the 24/7 scouting report on him, it even says he likes to thread the needle. And what did he do in a couple of those throws but thread the needle and put it through a small window? It was really cool to see that progression from him to shake off that first half, especially as a freshman, like you said, senior prom time, and shake all that off and say, you know what, I'm going to come out, I'm going to do a really, really good job in the second half. And I told you in text during the game that it felt like saying yes, Lincoln no, and Tavian St. Clair someday. And someday got really strong in that second half. I'm very bullish on the future for him. He looks really good.
And I love his physical traits. I like when we got to see it in Student Appreciation Day. Obviously, he wasn't live at all today, but they made the quarterbacks live last Saturday for a few periods. I love that he's not afraid to throw that big body around. He was out there. He trucked Leroy Roker once, and I'm like, good. If you're a 6'4", 6'5" quarterback, 240, and you can run fast, and you're tough, man, that's going to be a nightmare. That's going to be a nightmare. By the way, speaking of quarterback stats, fresh off the press. All right, so according to the best SID in the country, Jerry Emig, I'm just saying that because he walked by. No, he's really, really, really good. All right, Lincoln Keenholz finished 12 of 18 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Julian Sands, 17 of 24, 175 yards, 1 touchdown. Tavian St. Clair, 11 of 15, 116 yards, 1 touchdown.
So they said Lincoln was 12 of 18. Is that what I heard?
That's what they're saying, according to Mr. Jerry Emig.
So that is probably the worst 12 of 16 I ever saw. And I say that in this.
I'm sorry, 12 of 18. 12 of 18.
12 of 18. I'm sorry. I say that in this regard, especially in the first half. And then he progressed as the game went on, but especially in the first half, he was throwing balls that were wild, and the balls that were catchable were not in a position where the receiver could do anything with it because he had to adjust to where it was and break stride or break off a route to get to the ball. He could not do anything with it for Yak once he caught that ball. And it improved in the second half. But I just watched that. I was like, seeing the kind of night and day between the two, and I'm not saying Sands perfect by any stretch of the imagination. He's got a lot to work on. But you could see much better ball placement. It was almost as if Lincoln was hoping to put it on target, and Sands was saying, I'm just going to put this on target.
Give me just a second here. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
I can pontificate on this all day.
I know you got to get this.
So I saw that on a couple of things. What I did like about Lincoln, though, and I'll say this, he did not lose his cool in the pocket. He sat back there when pressure came around, and they weren't live for getting hit and sacked and all that. But he kept his feet moving, bouncing in the pocket like you want him to, and he did not go off, get thrown out of rhythm when he had some pressure. When I saw the one thing I saw about on Sand when he had that seam route, beautiful. I think it was Sand that had the seam route to Claire. He stared him down. Like if the safety was watching his eyes, he would have jumped right over to it and maybe had a broken a pass breakup because he just looked at him the whole time and never looked off. He's still young. He'll learn and figure it out. But it was a gorgeous pass, and the result was fantastic as well. But a safety that was a little more on the game might have broke that up.
That's a good point. And it just hit me that this is the first time we're doing a What We Learned Live show since the national championship game.
Oh, was there a national championship game? That's right, there was.
It was. We were there and everything. It was glorious. Yeah, man, this is awesome. All right, so parting thoughts. We talked about, because I had Bill on earlier. We talked about Bo Jackson since you've been on. Boy, does he look good.
Yeah, he sure did. We did. I said, looks really good, especially coming off that injury. I love what the possibilities of what he brings. It was interesting to me. A couple of parting shots. It was interesting for me to see Patricia down on the sidelines in both halves, Heartline split between the booth and up in the box and down on the field. I don't know if Patricia is a guy that would go up during the season. He just wanted to be down there for spring games so he could talk and coach. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I thought Heartline called a pretty doggone good game. It's tough to really judge because they were in thud for first team. But I thought those second team, so it takes away a lot of the running game. But for second team, I thought they did really, really well with his play calls. There were only a couple that I would have thought maybe that's not a good call. I thought that one run play that stretched way out to the wide side and got caught for maybe a yard loss was a terrible call in the situation. But aside from that, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think Matt Patricia, I prefer my coordinators up in the box. I always harken back. I know Tom Herman, a lot of people don't like him now in Buckeye Nation, but he did help Ohio State win a national championship.
He sure did.
Okay, and we saw what happened with the offense when they turned it over to Ed Warner and Tim Beck. Not as good by a long shot. But my point is, I remember asking Tom Herman once, why do you like coaching from the box? And he gave me the best answer that I've ever heard. He said, because it's a sterile environment, you take the chaos out of it, and the sideline is so chaotic, and it helps you if you've come up with a plan. He used the idea, he gave me the example of that Purdue game. I think it was Urban's first year, it was either 2012 or 2013. They said, if we need a 2-point play, we're doing a throwback pass to the tight end. And then Kenny Guyton ended up being the quarterback because Braxton got banged up. They're playing Purdue. They had a heck of a quarterback. And then Carlos Hyde's just slamming the ball down Purdue's throat. They score a touchdown. Now everybody on the side's like, come on, let's just run it. Let's run it in there. Let's run it in there. And Tom Herman's up in the press box. He's like, no, we said we're going to do this play that we worked on all week if we need a 2-point conversion, and that's what we're doing. And that's what they did. He always said, if I was on the sideline, I'd probably get caught up in it. But I will say this about Matt Patricia. The dude's lost so much weight, he probably wants to show off.
Yeah.
Hiding up here in the press box, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kidding a little bit.
By the way, Quincy Porter looked really good. He looked the part, didn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, there's a reason he lost that black stripe as early as he did.
I still think Mylan Graham's going to be the top backup wide receiver. He is a year older than Quincy. They're both 5-stars. I know, right? I mean, first world problems and then some national championship basking problems. Who's going to be our top backup receiver? Is it this 5-star? Is it this 5-star? Or is this high 4-star in Bryson Rogers? It's just unbelievable how they reload, man.
It's insane. So coming out of spring, my thoughts are basically I think we have an answer in the quarterback derby. When I came on, and I was backstage, I heard you saying, he's certainly not going to say to Lincoln that, hey, we got our answer. Me viewing, this is how I feel. I think we have our answer, and obviously you want to get past transfer portal window, etc. I totally understand that. I feel really good about where we're at with that offensive line. Looks super solid. Defense was not allowed to run a whole bunch of intricate defensive schemes today. But looking at those linebackers playing and seeing them go at it, I still feel really good about this defense. It's all going to be about experience, how quickly they can learn on the fly for the ones that don't have experience, and how much the ones that do have experience coming back from last year can then guide, mentor, mold, and train those young guys to get up to the level they need to be as quickly as they need to. And by the way, that's week 1 against Texas.
All right, go enjoy dinner with your beautiful wife. Thank you as always for your insights.
All right, my man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
My man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider. Thank you very much, Heater. He's basically he's like we had him on, I think, every week. Even when he was at the game, he would come on. Speaking of guys that are at the game that come on, very rare. Pat's not at the game. Pat's in St. Louis, I believe.
We flipped.
Yeah, I know, right? Now I have the cool background, and you're in a basement. No, I don't think you're in a basement. But yeah, man, I'll ask you some specific questions. Your main takeaways.
Look, I think like every spring game, I think we've said this before. It's tough to take too much from this. It's, as Ryan Day says, one of the data points during spring practice, right? And while it is in front of fans and probably the closest thing they will get to a real game, it's still just one practice, essentially, one scrimmage. How do you judge some of these things, like when you're not tackling with the first team and you can't hit the quarterbacks? But I think you saw some positive things. I think after we were there last weekend for Student Appreciation Day, and the defense, I thought, won the day. I think you'd probably agree with that, Dave. The offense looked much more crisp, I thought, today. The quarterbacks were a part of that, specifically Julian Sayin, who was impressive, no doubt about it. And he bounced back from a rough scrimmage a week ago, as we talked about. So I think that's positive. The defensive line, Ryan Day was just talking about that on his press conference. I listened into that. Still a question mark. I think that may be somewhere you might see some additions if they can find the right guy in the transfer portal, especially on the interior.
Mm-hmm.
But like Logan George, I thought played well. Now he's going against the second team offensive line, but like if the defensive line does well, what does that say about the offensive line, and vice versa, right? So every time we say something positive, it could also be construed as a negative against the other side of the ball. But that's what the coaches have to break down. Ryan Day said they'll have meetings over the next week or so with players to kind of end spring practice and give everybody a sense of where they're at. And then you head into what is still an important summer before fall camp. I know Heater mentioned it. I heard him saying, like, the importance of this offseason is so much different because you start with Texas. And Ryan Day had to catch himself because he said basically they don't have those ramp-up games. And he's like, oh, I shouldn't say that. Like, you know what I mean. And I thought that was telling because, last year, Marshall, Akron, whoever they had, just a different level, right? And you could kind of build towards Michigan State on the road and Oregon. You don't have that luxury. Now, with the 12-team playoff, you can lose that Texas game at home and you're still in the mix, but you certainly don't want to do that coming off the national championship, right? It's going to be a big game at the Shoe. So, still a lot to work on, but I think the Buckeyes ended spring in a positive manner.
You mentioned Jason Moore a little bit earlier. Like, he's one of those guys that's vying to be that top backup D tackle. And I agree with you. I won't be surprised at all. I know they'll look in the portal for a D tackle for sure. Are they going to find one? We'll see. But you have Will Smith Jr., you have Tywone Malone, you have Jason Moore and Eric Mensah. Those four guys basically fighting for those top two backup spots right now, unless they add somebody. I don't know. Who would you say is the leader in the clubhouse to be the top backup D tackle? You think it's Will Smith Jr.? You think it's Tywone? You think it's Jason Moore? Jason Moore looked pretty good today. Yeah,
I thought Jason Moore and the guy that maybe stood out just because I didn't expect it was Eric Mensah. He pressure a few times, made some tackles, so to speak. And even, the fact that when we were at the Student Appreciation Day, he was doing some stuff with the twos. Like, this is a guy who, I hadn't really thought about as a potential part of that rotation as much. I did like Jason Moore as well. I think Tywone Malone, I still think that's a guy who, and you listen to Larry Johnson talk about him, like, that's a guy that should be in the mix, maybe not even to be a backup, but really push the starters, just given his physical abilities and things like that. So I think that there is the potential there to have that depth, but these guys have to perform, right? And so, I think Eric Mensah, Jason Moore were two guys that stood out. But again, like, I think you need to see more from these guys than, at least in the little bits we've seen, the production that they've had.
This is going to shock you, but some people were making grand proclamations early in the game. Like, I've seen enough. Julian Sand's definitely the guy. Lincoln Kienholz is going to transfer. It's like, okay, let's calm down. Do I think Julian's going to be the starter? Yes, I've been saying that the entire time. Even when he struggled last Saturday, it's one practice. It was 1 hour of one half of a practice. It wasn't even a whole practice. I think Julian's going to be the guy, but I thought Lincoln played better as the game went on. Julian just started off the game like really, really hot, and I think Lincoln's going to stick around, even if he believes that Julian's ahead of him. Where are you at on the quarterback situation? Like, break it down for all the fans out there.
Very similar. I think it is telling that Lincoln started the game and started the second half. They're certainly giving him the opportunity to be QB1, so to speak, but also very telling that Julian Sayin finished the first half and then came in at the end of the second half to sort of redo a 2-minute drill that Ryan Day said at halftime on Big Ten Network he wasn't exactly thrilled with. So putting Julian in those situations certainly speaks to me that, hey, we want to get this guy ready for that. But also, we're not completely discounting Lincoln Kienholz, and I think we've said that throughout, that there is a possibility that Lincoln Kienholz wins this job. And, you saw a little bit of it today. It wasn't his best day for sure. We saw some of it last week, the students that were there, some of the throws. He did have a nice throw down the sideline. I think you saw a little bit of his athleticism. But walking out of Ohio Stadium today, I'm not doing that. But you guys, I think you would definitely say that's what you wanted to see from former 5-star quarterback Julian Sayin. And, I think that sets the pace going into the offseason, or the rest of the offseason, I should say. And again, I'm not counting Lincoln Kienholz out. As Ryan Day said, there's been good and bad days for all the quarterbacks. And, this competition will certainly go into fall camp. But like you, Dave, I think I would be surprised, not completely shocked, but surprised if it's not Julian saying week 1 against Texas, leading the offense out on the field.
This is something I said to Heater earlier. I said it's a bold prediction. That's probably not even bold at this point. I'm curious if you agree. I am pretty much convinced that Austin Saravel is going to be the starting right tackle, and Philip Daniels is going to be a really key backup. I know they like him, but I think Saravel is going to be the starting right tackle. I would bet heavily on that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. In fact, Ryan Day was asked about the that position and just kind of the offensive line, and it was mentioned that Austin Saravel seems to have at least taken over that role, and he did not push back on that, which I thought was interesting. He didn't say, well, we're still looking at right tackle and potential options there. No, it does seem like Austin has kind of grabbed that job, which I would not have expected. I thought he would still be in the mix at guard, but this is an athletic guy, a guy who's worked really hard. So I think the fact that he's shown what he can do on an offensive line, winning a national championship. But remember, Luke Montgomery comes in at the end of the season and sort of takes that job by the national championship game, right? That left guard spot. He was, they were still rotating, but he started the national championship game. And, why move that if that's working? You've got Tegra still in there. He started today. So I think that if Austin has done well at that position this offseason, and it sounds like he has, the bits that we've seen, I think have looked good. That move to tackle, that would be a positive step. And look, I've said it from the beginning when we've talked, Dave, the Philip Daniels transfer, a lot of people were surprised how interested Ohio State was. Minnesota people were surprised how interested Ohio State was in a guy who Minnesota was really high on, but he only started last year because of injuries at the end of the season. They think he could be a good Big Ten offensive tackle, but it was going to take some time. Well, if you're coming to Ohio State, which no offense to Minnesota, but still a step up, even in the Big Ten, I think maybe that's what Ohio State has seen is, look, we have a guy who could be a starter here maybe down the road or if we really needed him to, but Austin Saravel, if he can do it right now and do it at a higher level, that's the guy we're going to go with. And look, I think that's a good thing, right? That means Philip Daniels now is getting pushed to be even better, and this would be a competition I'm going to keep an eye on.
Saravel, only one of 3 Buckeyes to be Iron Buckeye during the winter workouts, along with J.J. Smith and Sonny Styles. And I was really impressed with what Saravel did as a redshirt freshman on that national championship team. As you mentioned, they rotated those 3 guys between the 2 guard spots. It was Luke at left guard, Tegra at right guard. Austin's playing both. Austin would rotate, play left guard, give Luke a break. Then he'd go over to right guard, give Tegra a breather. So that was already impressive that he was the one playing both spots. Now he's playing right tackle, coming off a great offseason. I really like Austin Saravel, but I like the depth on this offensive line. Carter Lowe there, a backup left tackle. The Armstrong brothers, for those who are wondering, are running with the 3s right now. Deontay at left tackle. I think it's Deontay at left tackle and DeAndre at, I'm getting their names wrong, 3rd-team left tackle and 3rd-team left guard. Right now it looks like Carter Lowe is the backup to Onionwa at left tackle. Daniel's the backup. And Ian Moore was out there getting some reps as well, left tackle and right tackle. So I like the depth on this offensive line, man. Josh Padilla, if anything happens at Hinsman, you got a guy entering his 3rd year that I think could get the job done at center. I just love the depth on this O-line. Okay, one more thing. I'll get you out of here on this. I'm going to ask Steve this as well. We're going to bring in Steve Helwagen in just a moment. I haven't seen the press conference yet. Is there anything you think the people need to know from the press conference? Was it kind of a boring press conference?
No, I thought Ryan was pretty good. It was just Ryan. That was the only guy who talked. I think he gave a fair assessment of the quarterbacks, said that Lincoln Kienholtz kind of settled after a bit of a bumpy start. He thought Julian made some nice throws, but that both guys have room to grow, which I think is true. This quarterback competition is not over. I don't think Julian has done anything to win it at this point. He's shown some positive things, and I think that's where Ryan is. He talked a lot about wishing they had more practice, and I think it was Tim May who asked about you between the first and second quarter. Those guys come out to get their rings, and you look over. Does that really make you realize how many guys you've lost? And Ryan said, it's not really the talent. We still have a lot of talent on this team. It's the experience that walked out of the door, right? So many guys, even guys that played last year, take Jermaine Matthews Jr. He played a lot last year, but he wasn't a full-time starter, and now he's got to be a full-time starter. And that's a different role, even though he did play a lot of games, has started in the past. And there's a lot of guys you can point to that have played some football. Brandon Innes. Interesting enough today, Bryson Rogers started in the slot, which I thought, just to note. But yeah, a lot of guys that just don't have experience. Ryan Day talked about that, wishing they had more. He said, I wish we could stay out there for 4 more hours. And pretty much every guy he talked about, he said he just needs to play 11-on-11 football. And he sort of went on a little sidebar about how, 7-on-7 just doesn't cut it. They need to play 11-on-11, and talked about how you play basketball, you play all these sports, you're playing how many games, you can go out and, off season, you can practice the same way you'd play, stuff like that. And you don't have that in football, at least in college football. So he clearly likes the talent on this roster, but also recognizes they've got a lot of work to do before the season starts. And as we talked about earlier, that first game against Texas.
I like what he said to us about a week ago. He was like, his philosophy on spring ball. He's like, after such a long season, 16 games and playing all the way till January 20th, I was thinking we need to kind of take it easy during spring ball. Then they're about like a week into spring ball. He's like, we need like 6 more weeks of spring ball. It was funny to hear him say that, but great stuff, Patrick. I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the Lou, and I will see you. I don't know when I'll see you. I'll see you soon, though.
All right. I'll see you.
Bye, bud. Thanks, man. Let's bring in Steve Helwagen down from the bowels of Ohio State. I'm hoping I'd see Steve's pretty face up here, but at least I get to see it. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Give me 1 second to get something routed here, and we'll be ready to go.
Take your time. I got some questions from the good peeps. Terry on YouTube is like, how do the D tackles look? Well, I thought Evan Houston looks good, and I like Caden McDonald. I'm concerned about the depth. I know not breaking news there.
I didn't like how they broke through line for like 20 and 30-yard runs early in the game.
I like these running backs, though, man.
Yeah, I didn't think that was good, and people were immediately making comments about the defensive line being a little substandard. But I thought Logan George at defensive end really flashed. He probably got in there 4 times and had 3 sacks, although a couple of them were touch. They blew the whistle early. I think Sayin would have avoided him on one of the late ones. But I think on the whole, you got to be very happy with what you saw today on really both sides of the ball. The defense kept it very vanilla. Only a couple coverages, only 1 or 2 fronts, and really didn't deviate or show the offense a whole lot of different looks. So they kept it very simple, and I think that was probably a good thing.
All right, quarterbacks, obviously the story of the day. Again, it's one practice of spring, even though it's the spring game. I mean, Julian looked better than Lincoln today, and I think Julian's going to be the guy. I've talked about this throughout the show. Your thoughts on the quarterback situation leaving spring, Steve?
Yeah, I think Julian Sayin today showed his class, and I don't mean that in that, he's got class and style. I mean that, in a horse racing sense, that, he comes into this as like a Kentucky Derby favorite, and he showed that kind of racing class is what I would say. He came right out of the gate firing, Dave, and he was very impressive. In the first quarter, he threw for 110 yards and just moved the team right down the field both times. And
3 times, right? He was 3 for 3. His first 3 drives, touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you got to be impressed with what you saw with Julian Sayin. And then I agree with what Coach Day said, that Lincoln Keenholz settled down. He sent a couple passes high and wide early, and I think maybe he was probably amped up a little bit. I don't know. He's a third-year sophomore, so this was his day. And eventually, he played pretty well to throw 2 touchdowns. Jerry did give us what they're considering to be the official numbers, which are within a few yards and a few completions and attempts of what I posted on our game story. So
I kind of trust you. You take copious notes. I tend to trust you.
Well, the issue was I'm over here in the interview room, and I'm trying to watch it on television. Of course, they're interviewing. They got people down there on the field that they're interviewing, and they're not showing the game. So how do you keep stats of a game when they're not even showing the game half the time? But we did the best we could. And, we're within striking distance of what they came up with. I think they had saying 17 of 24 for 175 and a touchdown in that range. Keenholz 2 touchdowns, just a few yards less. And great for St. Clair to hit a touchdown late and really drilled it in there to Phillip Bell. And, he throws the 2 picks, and Jake Butt and everybody on television remarked, as I could hear it over here when I was watching it on the screen over here, he didn't let that define his day, the 2 picks, that he came back and really mid third quarter to finish the game, he was pretty good. So I guess you got to like that portion of it, at least for St. Clair. The interception in the left flat, tough one. Threw it kind of behind the receiver, it looked like. And
Fahim Delane jumped
yeah,
that bad boy. Fahim Delane looks good, man.
Yeah, great play by Fahim Delane there. And then the other one, Dinky Jones, I'm not registering it, what happened on that one. But
over toward the sideline, Inky made a nice play on it. It wasn't a good throw. Inky barely kept a foot in, but yeah.
Yes, that's right. He was going out of bounds, and they were debating. They were going to have Mike Pereira weigh in whether he got his feet down.
Imagine they had a 15-minute review.
Do you know, last year we had Gus and Joel Klatt here. It was on Big Fox, and if they needed Mike Pereira from LA, they probably could have dialed him in. But on April the 15th or whatever day it was, but. At any rate, man, what a fun day. And I got to tell you, the rest of the Big Ten, the other 17 schools in the Big Ten, they can eat their heart out. And here's why. Because for about 5 or 6 minutes, that was an infomercial for Ohio State football. At the end of the first quarter, they stood out there on the middle of that field and passed out those rings. And the other 17 teams in the Big Ten had to be like, can't believe they're taking this time on television to do this. And not only that, did they revel. I mean, they had Jack Sawyer and Will Howard gave some incredible comments as always. And, Ohio State's the king dog right now. I don't give a shit what the Big Ten championship trophy says. Ohio State's the one to beat. And I saw a lot of good things today that are going to tell me that they should be installed, no question, as the favorite going into it this coming year. They've reloaded on offense. Can these guys go into Michigan and win a game as a quarterback? I don't know the answer to that one specifically just yet, but I think either of these guys can go out and win 9 or 10 games, no problem, and no issue at all. So I think that that's a starting point. And between now and the start of the season is when the improvement has to happen to where they become guys that you say, okay, we can win 11 or 12 games with these guys, and we'll find out in August and September where they're at.
Yeah, I would take the national championship over the Big Ten championship a million times out of a million. You knew who else would? Oregon. Well. I mean,
especially when they got their ass beat by 20 points in the Rose Bowl, too.
They were lucky it was only 20 points. 34-0 in the second quarter. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Times have changed. It used to be you couldn't win the national championship without winning the Big Ten. Now, Ohio State almost won it in 2002. 2022. They did win it in 2002. They almost won it in 2022. Really should have won it. They got screwed against Georgia, speaking of replay, and then did win it this past year. So times have just changed, man.
Playoff rules, no running clock in the playoff. If there'd been, a regular game and it was 34-0 middle of the second, it would have been running clock. But, whatever.
That would have been good. Run ruled them in the Rose Bowl.
In the Rose Bowl of all places.
I do want to get your thoughts. I asked Pat this as well. Did anything stand out to you that people need to know from the press conference, or was it just kind of a regular?
He didn't address all the injured players, not that there were a ton of them, but Will Kazmarek, he said that is not serious and that he'll be with them all summer long, so that's not a problem. I don't know who of note else missed this game. You did the story about the scratches, and I don't know if it was anybody in particular that they were. There was another. Oh, that was the one tight end, Kazmarek.
So Kazmarek was on there. Guys that we expected. I mean, like Bryce West was on there. He hadn't practiced all spring. Yep. I always forget Keenan Nelson Jr. is even on the team.
Yeah,
he was on there. It was nobody. But Kazmarek was like the most notable guy on there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, no, I thought it was very good in the post game. Talked up the running backs. I thought Bo Jackson had a hell of a day in his first time in the horseshoe.
Yes.
I thought Sam Williams-Dixon ran hard.
Yes.
There was no need for Peoples to play, so he didn't play. Only a couple plays. Yeah. And Jeremiah Smith had a couple plays. Carnell Tate had a couple plays. Brandon Ennis had a couple plays. And go grab a ball cap. And I think Ennis is going to fight on his hands, I think, with Mylan Graham and maybe Bryson Rogers. It's going to be – it could be a big 5 this year instead of a big 3. So I think all those guys are in the running to play quite a bit. And, really it's an insurance blanket knowing you got Jeremiah Smith over there that could just take over a game at any given moment. And, I'm excited. I think the offensive line played outstanding, and that's not been the case the last few springs. And, you can win a lot when your offensive line plays good. So, I'm very encouraged. You got so many people that are capable of making plays. Quincy Rogers had a big game. I mean, my God, just all these young guys. Nate Roberts at tight end looked good. I mean, there were so Max Clare caught a touchdown. So many guys that
Quincy Porter. Yeah, Quincy Porter.
Oh,
Yep.
what did I say? Quincy Rogers.
I call him Quincy Rogers sometimes too.
Yeah, I get my
I'll be
names
right, I'm like,
confused.
that doesn't
I'm
look
very,
right.
I'm very old and decrepit. So
No,
I
I've done
still
that.
read.
I've done that myself too. It's
I'm
funny you said
dyslexic.
that.
As in addition to being old, I'm dyslexic. So there you go.
Hey, some of the smartest people in the world have dyslexia. You know,
Yeah.
so there you go.
What a beautiful day, man. Sad that
really
only
is a beautiful
40,000
day.
people showed up. I think the confusion that this was going to be a practice instead of a game, and they did the best they could the last 2 weeks to get the word out that it was actually going to be a game. But they've had crowds of 90,000 people here for this thing before. And, 50 degrees, but that's not bad. I mean, if you're sitting in the sun, it wasn't that bad. So
The
40,000
press
people.
box certainly was hot enough.
Yeah, no doubt. I know you don't come enough to know that you got to wear a short sleeve shirt when you're sitting in that press
Listen to you.
box.
Like I haven't been
And
here.
wear layers over it. Then if it gets hot,
I like this backdrop better than my
your
very
house.
very fancy basement where I have. It looks like a professional studio. It's just a corner of a basement. So I have
much else. I think
lighting.
back seven on defense looks good too, and I really don't know what else there is to get into on this, but a banner day for the Buckeyes. Yep, Andre's got it right. Beautiful day to be a Buckeye fan. Still number one, buddy, till somebody knocks him off.
I'm going to get you out of here on this because I like these backup receivers like you're mentioning Quincy Porter. Not Rogers, but we'll get that. Quincy Porter, I think Bryson Rogers looks good. Am I wrong to think Mylan Graham is clearly the number 4?
Yeah, no, that play, dude. They blew one of his plays short. He was going to go another 20 yards on one of those, and then he was live when he caught the one over the middle and housed it. So 49 yards. That was
Malik Hartford still has some lingerie on the deck, as Bill Raftery would say. He just undressed him out there. I was like,
Hartford had. I don't know. I'd have to go back over the film. Hartford, he got trucked late in the game by Bo Jackson. Maybe he trucked him, and it was a rough day if your name was Malik Hartford. He got beat up a little bit, but he and Jalen McClain. That's a nice battle at safety to play alongside Caleb Downs. But Mylan Graham. Back on your question, I think he's every bit as good as he was advertised last year coming out of high school. It's just taken him an extra year to get back to where he needs to be. And to me, I just expect a huge career the next 2 years, at least out of Mylan Graham. I think he's going to be, he could be a 50-catch guy this year with the other guys that they have there, and then graduate up to 70 or 80 the following year. But he's going to be a good one. I have no doubt about that.
I have no doubt you're a good one, Steve Helwagen. Thank you for your time, sir.
Same to you, Dave. What a beautiful day. I hope everybody gets out there and enjoy. What time do our beloved Reds play today, Dave? 4?
I think, isn't it a typical 6:47, 10? I don't know. Let me look. Hold on. This is important stuff.
This is
important stuff. Give us a minute here.
They've won one in a row.
Steve and I are gluttons for punishment. So we're diehard Reds fans. It's worked out great for us. Well, you at least probably have some memories of the Big Red Machine. And I got to experience 1990, so it could be worse. Yeah, we're looking at about a 6:40 first pitch down at Great American Ballpark. Can we go on a 2-game winning streak? I think so. 2-game winning streak. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
All right, buddy.
All right, guys. Take care.
Enjoy the match. With the Reds. All right. Great stuff from Steve. I'm sure some of you guys out there are ready to, probably are, watching some golf today. But go Guardians. I got no problem with that. I don't feel like we're not really. I mean, we play each other like 6 times a year. It's been 4 times the last few years, but the Reds and the Guardians are playing 6 times this year. Being down in spring training, the Guardians complex, as I think you guys probably know, is like right next to the Reds. So you got Guardians and Reds, and they're both huge complexes and they're separate, but they're like also like right next to each other. It's really cool. And then when you're down there, I'm wearing Ohio State stuff. So you got all the Reds fans that are Buckeye fans, all the Guardians fans that are Buckeye fans, and it's like all the Buckeye/Reds/Guardian fans are all in Goodyear, Arizona. It's pretty cool, which is named after the Goodyear Tire Company from Ohio, because years ago they went down there and bought a bunch of land to grow cotton for their tires, and they named it Goodyear. And there's a town, as you guys probably know, a little further down called Buckeye, another suburb of Phoenix, kind of a stretch called Buckeye, a suburb. It's kind of way, way, way out there. But, so go Guardians. I draw the line at Browns. Can't root for the Browns. When we're in the same division, can't root for the Browns. But I root for the Guardians. And I'm glad you guys have a good manager, because I'd feel bad. In fact, you guys have a great manager. I'd almost feel bad for you guys that we have the future Hall of Fame manager and you guys lost him, but you guys replaced Tito with a really good manager of the year. So you guys are in a good spot. And you know who else is in a good spot? The Ohio State Buckeyes, defending national champions. House money, I'm not going to go that far, because I want them to be the first team to ever repeat, but it does take the pressure off. All of this, just look at Ryan Day himself. It's like the weight of the world is off his shoulders. And like the guys coming out last year and saying natty or bust, I mean, that just puts a huge target on your back. Not that Ohio State doesn't already have a target on their back. They will this year, being the defending champs, but I think it takes some of the pressure off. And I love this schedule this year, because with the 12-team playoff, whoever loses that game in week 1 between Texas and Ohio State, they would need to lose at least 2 more games to miss. Because I think let's say Texas comes in here and loses a relatively close game. Then they lose 2 games in the SEC to good teams. They're sitting there at 9-3. 100% Texas is getting in. 100%. Ohio State, same deal. Let's hope this doesn't happen. Lose a close game to Texas. That would hurt a little more, because it's here, where Texas would be on the road. But then let's say you lose, can't be to a certain team. They're not going to lose to a certain team. Let's say maybe Ohio State loses a couple more games, but they're close games against good teams. 9-3 Ohio State, 100% is getting in. So it's not even like the Texas game. That's why I don't like what Matt Rule said. Like, there's no point in playing these games. The fans love them, and the fans are why Matt Rule's making $9 million a year to be a above average coach. Is that fair? Average? Certainly not good or great. He's getting paid $9 million a year because of the fans. Okay, so we need these marquee matchups, especially now that 12 teams make the playoffs, and I guarantee you, starting in 2026, they're going to bump that to at least 14. So I like these big non-conference matchups. So it's going to be a lot of fun. This team is very talented. They're young. But man, and the NFL draft in a couple weeks, less than a couple weeks, is going to be, talk about an infomercial for Ohio State. That's going to be a 3-day infomercial for Ohio State. So I can't wait for that. Can't wait for the season. This has flown by. The national championship game was less than 3 months ago. 1, 2, 3. Still basking. Love you guys. By the way, it was good meeting some of you guys today. I got a chance to meet Buck Rational. I got a chance to meet Asian Posh Doreen. I did a show before the spring game for 97.1. We did our tailgate show. Bunch of legends on there, and then me. I was like, oh, geez. We had like Tim May, Paul Keels, Jim Lachey, my guy Anthony Rothman. And I was just along for the ride. Had a lot of fun, but, some people came up to meet us and stuff. It was really cool getting to meet some of you guys. So Buck Rational, Doreen, and some of the other guys. I met the Sanchez family. That was really cool. I felt like I already knew Dee Sanchez, because she's always very active in our chats and everything. It's just cool meeting. And I felt like I've known Doreen for like 5 years or something. It was weird. Like, we actually hadn't met in person. So, if you guys ever see us doing a podcast or anything, come over and say hi. Although if I'm in my basement, that might be kind of weird. But certainly if we're out in public, come up and say hi to us. Appreciate you guys very, very much. One more question. We talked about this. Linda knows what's going on. Linda's still basking there on Facebook. Everybody's basking. There you go. Basking. Let's go. That should be one of the shirts. Basking. Still basking. All right. We'll finish on this. I did touch on this, but this is a huge thing. Okay. How'd the backup defensive linemen look? Well, I somewhat like the backup defensive ends. I could use a little more depth there, but I think they're in a good spot there with obviously Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson being the starters. I love how they've waited their turn. Entering their 4th year, they're finally going to get a chance to be starters. And getting Logan George was a good get in the portal. He's going to be that number 3 guy, and I think he's going to be a good 3-down defensive end. And if you needed him to start, if one of those guys got banged up, or you need him to play big minutes because they're gassed, I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to be great. I think Logan George is going to be good. And then I like C.J. Hicks. He's quick off the edge. He's finally found a home there. It was like they never really did that with Baron Browning. And then Baron Browning's not a good pass rusher in the NFL. It's like he probably would have been good here if he's good in the NFL. So I'm glad they finally, better late than never, C.J. Hicks. And then I think Zion Grady's going to add some depth there. Dominic Kirks is another one. So they've got some decent depth at DN. I'm not worried about it. D tackle, different situation. I like the starters with Cade McDonald and Edric Houston, and I have no idea what's going to happen with the backups. Now, they've got guys that are talented that are in the mix, so that gives me some hope. And you're not counting on any of these guys to start. You're counting on them to be backups. There's 4 guys that I'm keeping an eye on at D tackle. All right, so that's Jason Moore, who looks huge. I thought he looked good today. Will Smith Jr., Tywone Malone, and Eric Mensah. they need 2 of those guys to step up, at least, and prove that their backup D tackles can go in there and get the job done. Because you don't need Caden McDonald playing like tons of snaps. He's a big boy. He's going to get gassed. Edric can probably play more snaps, but still, you want to keep those guys fresh to a degree. And if they get banged up, you need good depth. That's one of the great things from this team last year. The depth was just off the charts good. So I think – so the portal opens on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So it's open from April 16th to April 25th. I have no doubt they're going to look for a D tackle in the portal. Are they going to find one they like? If they find one they like, are they going to be able to get him? I have no idea about that. I know they're going to look. When I asked Ryan Day at the start of spring, do you plan on looking in the portal? And what positions might you look at? First thing out of his mouth was D tackle. So we'll see what happens. I won't be surprised if they add a quarterback just for depth, but might not need to because they got Mason Maggs as a walk-on. He could be that emergency 4th guy. If you're going to just bring in somebody for depth anyway who's never going to play, is he definitely going to be better than Mason Maggs? I mean, if you can find somebody that you're confident in to come in here. But the guys they've gotten in the past, I mean, Chugs was okay, but Gunnar Hoke never played. Tristan Gebbia never played. But my point is, since Ryan Day's done this already 3 times, I could see him getting a quarterback just for depth, just for an extra practice arm too, an extra scout team guy. So D tackle for sure. They'll look at that, and maybe quarterback, and maybe there'll be another position they'll look at that I'm not even mentioning because somebody pops in the portal that they like, because they're not going to leave any stone unturned. That's what the national championships do. They don't take a day off. They turn over every stone, and they win national championships. All right. Appreciate you guys a lot. I'm going to close up shop here, and thanks to everybody for tuning in the show. We had a huge live audience. Thanks to all of you very much. I appreciate you guys. And thank you very much to all my guests, the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurelic, my man in Amsterdam, Heath Schneider, Patrick Murphy, Steve Helwagen. I appreciate all those guys for their insights. And again, thanks to you. This show is for you, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you very much. Everyone has a great rest of your day. Keep basking, stay basking, still basking. I know you are. Go Bucks.